Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano. It's the 16th of February, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So Geth has a new version out. I think this was today or yesterday, Geth version 1.11.0. This is a major release shipping more than 300 pull requests here. Now some of the highlighted features here are Shanghai upgrade support. So most of the code for the Shanghai fork is merged into this version, but activation of the fork is of course not configured yet. The Shanghai protocol upgrade will contain the ability to make withdrawals from the consensus layer. Withdrawals are specified in this EIP here. A new database backend that I spoke about, I believe, last week called Pebble, which is replacing LevelDB. I think this is the first major database replacement that Geth has gone through in its history. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe that's what it is there. They have removed some features. There's some other new features here. I mean, all the details are in this post, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. And I also saw on Twitter that because of Pebble, or because of this new database architecture, in an upcoming release, Geth will be able to auto prune its database, which means that instead of having to manually prune the database that you know, like you currently do on Geth, so that you can save disk space, obviously, and kind of, I guess, quote unquote, reset Geth, it'll be done automatically in a future upgrade, which is definitely what I am looking forward to the most, to be honest, because it's something that has, I think, annoyed myself and many users in the past, but great to see that that's going to be worked on now that the Pebble architecture is in place. So yeah, if you are running Geth, be sure to upgrade to this version. You can go download this, and I'll link the download link in the YouTube description below. All right, so Coinbase is still being based again today. So Jesse Polak from Coinbase basically said or shared on Twitter that today, every one of the millions of subscribers to the Coinbase Bytes newsletter got a nudge to help secure and scale Ethereum with the KZG ceremony. So I mentioned the other day how Coinbase basically has like a call to action on their website to say, hey, you know, go participate in the KZG ceremony. Well, now they sent it out as part of their newsletter as well, and they've put it on Twitter in the past too. So they really are trying their best to help Ethereum's kind of scale, Ethereum layer 2 scale. Things like the KZG ceremony being presented to users is really, really cool. And I've gone on about Coinbase obviously a lot recently, but they are just kicking goals right now. I mean, goal after goal after goal, doing so many good things for the ecosystem. I can't wait to see what else they've got up their sleeves. You know, I know that they're going to be supporting the L2s. They definitely want to nudge more people to do more on-chain stuff, especially within DeFi, with the Coinbase wallet, things like that. So I'm just very, very keen to see where they go next with this, because I think that they have a kick-ass vision here, kick-ass team. Jesse seems to be at the forefront of it in terms of supporting Ethereum and layer 2s and everything that's happening with Ethereum. He's also been a very, very big participant or in the EIP 4844 work, and definitely, you know, been on the calls and things like that as well. So very cool to see this here. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that we should get more contributions here. We're almost up to 50,000, I believe, contributions, and there's still 28 days or 27 days left or something like that to go. So we may actually hit that 100,000 mark that I said that we may hit when this thing started. So we'll see. But the fact that we're pretty much at 50,000 contributions is already huge, I believe. All right, so Sam Richards from the Ethereum.org team tweeted out saying that they just added their 100th page to the Ethereum developer documentation on ETH.org. He goes on to say, it's been amazing to see this resource come to life over the past few years. Thank you to everyone who contributed and continues to. What's missing? Well, get involved to kind of see what's missing. And then Sam says, yeah, my biggest critique is its current information architecture. It worked well at 20 pages, but I don't think the site structure has scaled well with the content. And he'd love to hear proposals on how to improve this, and you can join the discussion here on GitHub. So yeah, I mean, this is always the issue when you have a lot of information get added relatively quickly. It tends to get pretty messy, and you need to be able to fix it up and tidy it up in order for the navigation to be a lot easier, especially for like I guess the everyday user, right? And that's exactly what he's looking for help for with at the moment. But there are obviously other things that you can help with as well. But all you have to really do is just get involved. I mean, at the end of the day, I think getting involved with the Ethereum.org website effort is probably one of the easiest things you can do in terms of getting involved with, and also one of the highest return things you can do, because at the end of the day, this is the main website that people see when they Google Ethereum. I believe it's still the first result on Google when you Google Ethereum, after the ads, of course. And you need to there needs to be accurate information on this website, and it needs to be easily findable, navigatable, and digestible as well. So you can help with that, of course, because this whole thing is open source. But yeah, if you want to check out the developer section, you can as well. As I said, there are 100 pages here on the developer section, which covers so much. I mean, if you want to be an Ethereum developer and you're just getting started, this is definitely the place to be. So yeah, definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so talking about withdrawals just before, Attestant here put out a blog post titled Understanding Withdrawals. Now, this was published by Jim McDonald of Attestant, and this is a really great blog post. I read through it just before. It goes through pretty much everything you need to know about it, with graphics to detail it as well. And this is something that I had asked for, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, where I basically said that we needed an easy explainer of staking withdrawals in kind of one place and one blog post, because a lot of people are getting confused about withdrawals and how it worked with full and partial withdrawals, and how there's a queue for withdrawals, and how, you know, the partial withdrawals are automated so users don't have to actually do anything, and all that sorts of stuff. Well, that gets explained in this blog post. And there's even other things in here too, like the history of withdrawals, you know, what a validator's been doing since the Beacon chain launched, what changes with Shanghai, the withdrawal clock, all these good things here. I mean, it was a very great blog post. I was reading it. Sometimes when I'm reading a blog post and I get like halfway through, I'll be like, wow, okay, this is really good. This is really information dense, but it's not long, right? Like you can see here, the blog post isn't very long, but it gets its point across. That's what I love. I hate sometimes I read blog posts and they're really, really info dense and it's not getting its point across, and I kind of lose interest. I'm like, okay, well, I came here to learn one thing, and now you've kind of sent me on these paths, and I'm like, I don't really have the motivation to read this anymore. That did not happen with this blog post. So yeah, enough of me gushing over it. You can go read it for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But just a note on withdrawals as well. Seems that we're still on track for that end of March timeline here, which is obviously super exciting. I think that it's funny because I'm so curious still to see what happens and what the price of ETH is going to be at the time, because it's going to be funny to see. Like, let's do some speculation here. Let's say that by the time the withdrawals go live, ETH is at $2,500, and we just had like a nice big run up, and kind of like ETH didn't sell off or anything like that. But then say a couple weeks after withdrawals, ETH has dumped down to like $1,700 or something like that. Right, inevitably people are going to say, "Oh, well, you know, there's the post-withdrawals dump we told you guys about," and it's like, okay, well, I mean, no, because you've been talking about this post-withdrawal dump since ETH was like $1,000 basically, and if ETH had already run up and then dumped back down, that's probably just the fact people taking profits from that run up, not necessarily from the staking withdrawals going live. So it's always funny when these events happen, because people always have to point to a reason as to why the market does something. Like the last few days, the market going up, people are like, you know, why is it going up? There has to be a reason. Like, I mean, a lot of the times there isn't actually a reason for it. It's just going up because there's more buyers than sellers. Like that is the reason, right? That's the typical buy, demand and supply there. And then there's a good book on this called Fooled by Randomness, which I've mentioned before. But basically, you'll always find someone trying to find a reason for everything. There always has to be a reason for market moves, when in reality, especially over the short and medium term, there is rarely a discernible reason that you can just point to and say confidently that that's why it moved. Obviously, there are pumps like news-related pumps and exchange listing pumps and things like that, but they're usually very, very short-lived. You'll notice with a lot of the exchange listing pumps, they actually don't last very long at all. It can be maybe 24, 48 hours, but extremely short-lived. You'll notice that some news-related pumps, say some project announces a partnership with, I don't know, some big company in the real world or something like that, those again maybe only last 24 to 48 hours. So it's not lasting value accrual. So you can point to those things and say, okay, well, that led to that. But there are broader things that I think that people point to, and they're like, you know, this is why we're going up now, and the market's wrong here, and we're going to go back down because this is wrong, and blah, 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 right? And I think that's going to happen with withdrawals as well, because it just depends what the price of ETH is at the time, what it has done. Like, has ETH run up already? And then, it's a kind of like, quote unquote, sell the news event. But is it a sell the news event, or is it just a normal pullback for ETH because it had run up? it's always tough to say, and that's why you can't definitively say this happened because of this or this happened because of that. Like, and this happens all the time, right? And at the end of the day, if you're a long-term investor, none of this should really matter to you. But I do notice a lot of people in the prices and trading channel, in the Discord channel, talk about this sorts of stuff. So it's something interesting to talk about, I think, from time to time, but not to get yourself bogged down in. And of course, you guys know I don't trade or anything like that. So for me, it's just a thought experiment. It's never something that I'm actually taking action on, so to speak. I very rarely will trade anything. I mean, if you could call it trading, it's when I kind of swap out of other assets I have to buy more ETH. It's not, I'm not really trading those assets for more ETH. It's more so just assets that I had, and I'm like, okay, well, I feel comfortable kind of selling them now and buying ETH with it, sort of thing. But yeah, personally, I don't really trade generally, and I don't trade around events, especially. Like, I definitely think I would have wrecked myself a long time ago if I was trying to trade there. But yeah, anyway, a little bit off topic, but definitely go read this blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And the last thing on withdrawals, actually, Superfizz shared again ethstakers withdrawal call series. There's a 1-minute summary of what it actually is here, and there's also the first call linked in the thread. And the second call will be beginning today at 10 a.m. Central US time. So that may have already passed by the time by the time you're watching the refuel. So yeah, you can go check this out. This has more information about withdrawals in a probably easier to understand format than this blog post. This blog post it's not hard to understand, but maybe you want something that's like super easy to understand. Maybe you just want the highest level stuff and how it affects you. Well, these calls are definitely for you. They do dive into technical things as well, but I think that the fact that it's rather in a blog post form, it's in kind of like a video audio form, will be something that people will kind of get value out of as well. All right, so Rodrigo here from the EF tweeted out saying that the PSE team, or the privacy team here, is excited to share the Layer 2 grants recipients. The Ethereum Foundation received 130 plus proposals for tools, analysis, research, and education on Layer 2 rollups. Here is a summary of the 22 projects awarded. So the PSE is, the Privacy and Scaling Explorations team. That's what PSE stands for, not just privacy. And this blog post details the grants that they're giving out here. And the grants round started on October 24th and was open for 6 weeks. And as I said, they received over 130 proposals. And this chart shows the percentage of initial applicants by category. So the biggest categories were community and education and user experience at 28% and 23%-ish respectively, with other categories such as data analysis, cybersecurity, data visualization, and cryptography up there as well. Due to the high quality of proposals, the budget was raised from $750,000 to $948,000 here, and then the grantees are also listed here under each category. So very cool to see the EF doing this. I mean, these are just like kind of grants that are given out to these very promising teams under each of these categories, so to continue the work that they're already doing, or to start up the work that they want to do in order to make Ethereum a more scalable and private chain here. Now, the cool thing about this is that if these things actually, I guess, kind of like take off and start getting product market fit and start adding a lot of value to people, then what happens is these teams can go raise money from investors, right? From general investors. The EF itself, I believe, doesn't invest in projects. They just give grants. But the grants are usually really great because it basically gets the project off the ground, so to speak. It lets these people maybe quit their full-time job or be able to sustain themselves by working on this new thing for a little while, or hire more people that they need to kind of scale their thing out. So it's always great to see that these grants are given out by the EF. And in total, there were 22 grantees awarded a share of the $948,000 that was allocated as part of this round. But yeah, I'll link this blog post, or this announcement blog post, in the YouTube description below. You can go check out all the grantees for yourself. All right, so there has been so much kind of like FUD over the last few days about this stablecoin stuff. So you remember the other day I covered how the SEC is suing Paxos, and one of the New York regulators basically forced Paxos to shut down BUSD, so they can't mint any more Binance USD or BUSD. They can redeem it still, of course. And it was due to, I think it eventually came out that it was due to the fact that I originally said that I thought it was due to money laundering / terrorism financing stuff. That could still be part of it, but I haven't heard anything about that. But it seems like it was primarily due to the fact that Binance was issuing BUSD on chains other than Ethereum, which broke the, I guess, terms that were set forth by Paxos, or what Paxos had stated on its website. So obviously it was Binance doing the wrong thing here, and because Binance is not a US-based company, it is a lot harder to go after them. So essentially what the New York regulator did was that they went after Paxos, which is a US-based company. And because of that, as I said, there's been a lot of FUD since then about how USDC is going to be targeted, USDT is going to be targeted, all these other stablecoins are going to be targeted. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case, right? I said the day before, that Circle, the issuer of USDC, was actually the one that called this out, this Paxos stuff out to the regulator. So that's got to earn them some brownie points, right? And also Tether. I mean, Tether's a funny one because Tether has been the subject of intense scrutiny for a very long time, and yet here they are, right? Tether still holds its peg. They still do redemptions as verified by many different parties within the ecosystem, and they seem to have avoided general regulatory kind of shutdown. I mean, they've never been shut down, right? They've had scrutiny, they've had regulators go after them, but it seems fine. Now, that's not to say that I would hold Tether over USDC. I mean, I always hold USDC over everything else, basically, as my most trusted stablecoin. But Tether definitely is extremely resilient. It's basically the cockroach of stablecoins. So, and it's still the biggest stablecoin. So that's pretty impressive, right? But the peak FUD that came out, I believe, yesterday, was that this Fox, I think it was a Fox News reporter, tweeted out that pretty much every stablecoin issuer was issued a Wells notice, which is something the SEC sends out to companies that they are potentially investigating. Well, Dante here, who's the chief strategy officer and head of global policy at Circle, said that Circle did not receive a Wells notice, and this person, this reporter, deleted their tweet stating this. So this is the kind of fake news that can actually be, or FUD that can actually be put out there by seemingly legitimate reporters that that can be completely false, right? So what I like to do, and I've mentioned this before, is I always go to the source for these things. I never go to these kind of reporters and believe what they say straight away, because they definitely have an incentive to be first more than they have an incentive to be right. So for them, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll report this, and if I'm wrong, I'll just delete it, and no one will really care. And that's the thing, right? People will just forget about this pretty much straight away. Like, people cared. It's in the news cycle for maybe 12 hours where people were like, this reporter was an idiot. This didn't actually happen, blah, blah, blah. But then people move on straight away. So there's really no, I guess, like, negative outcome here, especially for a major network like Fox News. They definitely didn't suffer. I believe Fox News is actually the largest network in the US. I found that out the other day, or a few weeks ago, and I was just like, this is funny, because I always hear people going on about how they don't listen to mainstream media, but they love watching Fox News. And I obviously, being in Australia, we don't have Fox News, but we have Sky News, which is like a budget Fox News, I guess. But I found that funny. But anyway, that's a little bit off track there. But generally, it doesn't have to be just Fox News, right? It can be any reporter. I mean, there's plenty of these mainstream media outlets, who doesn't matter who they are, that report bullshit all the time. I mean, the New York Times and a lot of those, I guess, like, what is it? The Wall Street Journal and a bunch of them. I don't know all their names because, as I said, I'm in Australia. I don't follow these too closely, but a lot of them during the SBF saga posted so much bullshit, right? So much bullshit that was just so bad. And it was because, at least from what I saw, SBF had donated a lot to Democratic politicians, and these news outlets, from what I can tell, are definitely more left-leaning news outlets. So that led to them being more favorable of SBF, because it would harm the Democrats if you weren't favorable towards SBF because he was such a big donor of them. And people sometimes call that a conspiracy. No, it's just incentives at the end of the day. And I think that, as I said, these reporters, no matter where they are, they have the incentive to report something first, not the incentive to be accurate. Because at the end of the day, it's all about clicks. It's all about time to the market, so to speak, because at the end of the day, clicks are a market, right? The more clicks to the website, the more potential subscribers they can get, the more potential ads, the more potential people that see their ads that they show, and everything in between. So yeah, those incentives exist, they're pervasive. But yeah, just wanted to kind of clarify for you guys that Dante said that Circle had not received a Wells notice. And as I've said before, and I maintain this position, I would be very, very surprised if the SEC did to USDC what they did to BUSD. I just don't think that's going to happen. Circle is, and USDC is so regulated in the US, and USDC gets issued through Coinbase. Coinbase does most of the market making for it, I believe. They do regular audits, third-party audits, attestation reports, all that stuff. I mean, it's crazy the amount of stuff that they do. So if the SEC does go after them, it would be probably one of the biggest overreaches, that they've ever done, to be honest, within crypto at least. And I think that both Circle and Coinbase would fight them, and it probably wouldn't be a fight the SEC would have a good chance of winning either. So yeah, I'm sure they're going to pick their battles right there. But anyway, enough on that one. Just moving on. This is in the same kind of same category here, but Brian Armstrong, obviously the CEO of Coinbase, was quote tweeting this tweet that said that on June 1st of 2023, Hong Kong is going to officially make crypto purchase and sell trading fully legal for all of its citizens. And then Brian quoted this by saying, America risks losing its status as a financial hub long term with no clear regulations on crypto and a hostile environment from regulators. Congress should act soon to pass clear legislation. Crypto is open to everyone in the world and others are leading. The EU, the UK, and now Hong Kong. What I find pretty hilarious about this is that if China ends up being a more progressive place for crypto than the US, that is going to be an epic failure of the US, because just think about the geopolitical implications of that, where the US prides itself on being the quote-unquote freest nation in the world, but what if it gets to the point where they're more restrictive on crypto than China, who the US says is one of the least free places in the world, right? So that would be a very, very bad look. It would have geopolitical consequences, and it would force a lot of businesses away from US shores, potentially to places like Hong Kong, obviously the UK and the EU, and even potentially the Middle East. The Middle East has actually been pretty embracing of crypto lately, and Africa as well, and India, as I've discussed before. I know India was pretty harsh against crypto, but I think they'll come around eventually to it as well. But the US definitely needs to get their shit together here. These regulators need to put frameworks in place. They need to set the rules and guidance and regulations properly, so that all of these teams know what they're doing, what they're getting into, what they will and will not get in trouble doing in the US. Otherwise, if it's too hard to be compliant, the companies are just going to leave. That's it. They're just going to leave. And that's going to be really, really bad for the US, as I've discussed before. But anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. Enough on that. Moving on to some very positive news from Polygon. So Polygon's zkEVM is going to be launching on March 27th. So just about 8 weeks from now, Polygon zkEVM will be live on Mainnet in a beta fashion, of course. It's going to be called Mainnet Beta, but it's going to be live. Now, this is pretty big for a number of reasons, obviously. So first reason is that I believe this is the first zkEVM that's going to be going live on Mainnet. Second, Polygon has lived up to, once it's live, will have lived up to a lot of its promises that it made last year and the year before about bringing these layer 2s to Ethereum, bringing a zkEVM to Mainnet. And third here, it also just depends on what this is going to look like, right? Like, obviously that says mainnet beta here. Okay, so what does that look like? Is there going to be permissionless proving on the zkEVM? Is anyone going to be able to run validators and provers and things like that? Will anyone be able to deploy to the zkEVM? I think the answers to these questions are yes, from what I've seen, but we'll see. We'll see once it goes live how stable it is, if it lives up to the hype, obviously, because there's a lot of hype around this, what the user experience is like, what the fees are like. That's all going to be, I guess, verifiable to all of us on March 27th, which is obviously absolutely massive news, guys. Like, I've said it so many times now, but I can't stress enough just how much of a pipe dream people thought it was that zkEVMs were going to go live in 2023. Right, let alone going live in mainnet fashion, right? In mainnet beta, I guess, like fashion here. But they are, right? And as I said, Polygon is not the only one that's going live this year. We're expecting Scroll to go live as well, zkSync to go live. We're expecting Optimism and Arbitrum to basically, I don't think they're going to convert to a zk rollup, but they definitely have the infrastructure in place. At least Optimism will with Bedrock, and Arbitrum does with Nitro. It's definitely in place, and I believe that they're going to be continuing to build on that as well there. So yeah, but there's a blog post here on this announcement from Polygon that you can read as well, all about what's kind of like happening here, with a little video from Jordi Baylina, who's been one of the people at the forefront of building out Polygon's ZK team. He used to be part of a project called Hermes that was acquired by Polygon, if you guys will remember. And he's been, pretty much like one of the champions of Polygon's ZK effort here. So I'm sure for him, it is an amazing feeling to know that his technology, or the technology that he has worked on for so long, is going to be going live and in a mainnet beta fashion in about 8 weeks from today. So I'm obviously very, very pumped for it. You guys know I'm an advisor to Polygon. This has been a long time coming as well for me, because originally when I signed up to be an advisor with Polygon, I said to them, I'm like, hey, like I'm way more interested in your layer 2 offerings and the layer 2 offerings that you're going to be putting out there than I am in the side chain, obviously in the POS chain. But I still recognize that the POS chain was a stepping stone, but I always maintained that, and I always believed in that Polygon vision of the layer 2s. And at the time, it was more about optimistic rollups than it was about zk rollups and zkEVMs. But then Polygon eventually said, well, you know what, let's not really do optimistic rollups. Let's just go full into zk rollups, full into zkEVMs. And that's what they did. They spent all the money acquiring those teams, and this is the fruits of that labor. So it's, as I said, it's been a long journey. I mean, it hasn't been that long, but it feels like a long journey because it's crypto time. But Polygon seems to be living up to their promises, and I can't wait to see this going live on mainnet and play around with it myself. All right, so speaking of zkEVMs, zkSync 2.0, zkSync, the Twitter account, has said that multiple announcements are coming soon. Before kicking off a new era together, let's review zkSync 2.0's recent testnet data, including nearly 9 million transactions over the past 4 months. So yeah, there's testnet data here in a video where they've shown some metrics around this and some stats, and obviously teasing multiple announcements coming soon. So, as I mentioned before, Polygon isn't the only team bringing a zkEVM to mainnet. zkSync and Scroll are as well. zkSync have been teasing a lot of things for a long time now. They've been onboarding a lot of apps as well. It seems like they're going to be going live with a lot of projects when they eventually do go live here. A lot of integrations. I hope it's soon. They've also announced that they're going to be having a token eventually. Don't know when that's going to go live, obviously, but I think that they'd be waiting for the zkSync 2.0 to go live before they do that. But the testnet seems to be going really, really well. I'm sure they're gearing up for a launch relatively soon. Definitely with Polygon launching their zkEVM mainnet beta, these other teams are probably going to hurry it up a little bit, because we know that the first mover advantage in crypto is a pretty big deal. I mean, look at Arbitrum and Optimism, right? They were first movers in the layer 2 space, and they're still the biggest, because the first mover advantage counts for a lot within crypto, I believe, especially on the on-chain front of things here. So yeah, but anyway, I'll keep an eye on zkSync's major announcements that they said they've got coming soon, and highlight them on the Refuel as they come out as well. All right, last up here, we have a new thing that Flashbots has introduced called MEV Share, which they're calling, or which they're describing as programmably private order flow that empowers users, redistributes MEV, and takes a step towards decentralized block building. MEV Share is where transactions and bundles find their perfect match. Now, you can read the post here for a full breakdown of what this is, but essentially the TLDR is in this tweet here, where MEV Share builds on MEV Boost by further unbundling the transaction supply chain. Where MEV Boost enabled collaboration between validators and builders, MEV Share does the same for searchers and users, empowering users to be paid for their transactions. With privacy, users can bargain for the MEV they create without permissioning searchers, but programmable privacy allows users to selectively share information to enable optimization and collaboration. MEV Share is an exploration of how privacy, preferences, and commitments can enable decentralized block building. Its ideas are generalizable to the rest of the transaction supply chain, hence it can be seen as early implementation of Suave that can evolve into a decentralized network. And then Bert goes on to continue here and and basically describes it a bit more. But from the highest level here, what this basically does, as was mentioned, it unbundles, I guess, like the fact that we currently have searchers slash builders who submit these bundles to relayers. Basically, it's giving some power back to users to bargain for the MEV they create with these searchers and builders instead of kind of outsourcing it there. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to describe exactly how this works under the hood because I don't know it off the top of my head. Of course, there are details in that post that I mentioned here, but this is really cool to see because this, as Bert says here, does lead to more decentralization in block building, which should lead to more censorship resistance in block building. Now, I've mentioned before how the mevwatch.info website is a very kind of, I guess, simple view of the censorship resistance landscape because there are different ways that censorship can happen and censorship resistance can happen. So it's not really painting the whole picture, and this is a way where it can change as well, where certain places in the supply chain can be in the supply chain of MEV can be censored, and other places can be uncensored. And the funny thing is that you could, as I mentioned yesterday, you could have a block being proposed by an uncensored relay with a Tornado Cash transaction in it, but then the validator that proposes the blocks could censor that transaction themselves. So there is still kind of those concerns there, and being able to decentralize block building as much as possible, it alleviates some of those concerns. That's for sure. But yeah, anyway, if you want to learn more about this, I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.